Okay. We began yesterday morning talking about urban forestry and the greater urban ecosystem. We're concluding today's morning sessions by talking about how we manage urban forestry in the local urban political system, if you want to think about it like that. And you have to recognize that one of the most significant threats to urban forestry really isn't just the longhorn beetle and emerald ash borer. It is something we've only alluded to a half a dozen times, and that is the changing demographics of our communities and the fact that more and more of us are moving to these urban areas. And it's not by accident that Mark noticed in the short term a decline in urban canopy cover when the state or local bird in the district was the crane for construction. Local governments and state governments frequently adopt and work towards incompatible objectives, and it's hard to sort them out. One of them is our desire to accommodate a growing urbanized population. The state we're meeting in just next door, Maryland, is the fifth most urbanized country in the nation, and we've worked with that frequently in local governments there. I'll just illustrate it because I think it could be a point of discussion in your groups by looking at our local government, an area that I have lived in for the last half century, has adopted an urban tree canopy goal, mostly because the Chesapeake Bay program has advocated that for all local governments in the Chesapeake watershed. 1,643 different local governments are encouraged to adopt those goals. And Mark talked about one right here in the District of Columbia, and we talked about one earlier in Baltimore City. But we also have adopted, by the way, an electrical reliability standard. And our urban tree canopy goal projected that we would have to plant 20,000 new trees over the next decade in order to meet the goal that we had described in that particular local government. But we noticed through the recent storms that have come through that people began to complain about the fact that the power wasn't always on and that we were experiencing greater and greater number of power outages. The frequency not only was growing, but the length of those outages were growing. And it wasn't by accident that every storm is pictured on the television through and dramatically illustrated by falling trees. You see those all the time. So in an effort to address that public concern and improve electrical reliability, the local utility came in and working cooperatively with the local government, cut down in the course of a little more than 18 months, 30,000 trees. It is as if they cut a swath through our community about 40 feet wide and 160 miles long. In other words, in less than 18 months, they took down more trees than we intended to plant in the next decade to meet our urban tree canopy goal. And yet the community recognized that they wanted to achieve one goal and they wanted to achieve this other goal. So what we frequently find is the local government is trying to do several things at the same time that are incompatible. One represents an ultimate threat to the urban forest, and perhaps it's no accident that in all the illustrations that Dave and Morgan showed, if you notice where the trees are at on private property, they're all around the edges. And so when a power company comes through, that's right where the power lines run, right around the edges. They don't run right through the middle of private property. So when they take the trees down, frequently it's all the trees that are there. And so what you end up with is a significant challenge of how you inspire local stewardship to replace some of the trees that have been lost just for very good local electrical reliability or other worthwhile social goods in that local government. So take a look at the threats in your local area and whether or not they're compatible with the preservation, protection, and enhancement of urban forestry, because these are incompatible management objectives, and just one or two illustrations of what comes up. We want to encourage you we're going to send you off to lunch in just a moment, and then you're going to reconvene in your work groups, and we have some questions and things for changes because we're going to let you stay there a little bit longer and come back. We still want to reconvene and report, as I talked about earlier, but I'm going to ask Lori Geller from the National Academy staff to talk about the transition to these groups. Thank you, Lori.
And I just want to start saying I think this has just been a fantastic morning of talks, so I just want to give one more round of applause for all our speakers this morning. Thank you, Anne. So, okay, yes, this looks like the right slide. So, yeah, I think everyone seemed to feel that the breakout groups we had yesterday were really interesting and productive for our interactions. So, the only complaint we heard was that we didn't have enough time. So I'm a big fan of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we're basically going to go with the same approach today. We were going to have you stay in the same groups with the blue and the black and the red. You can do a little group hopping if you really want to. We won't police you, but we just want to kind of have an equal number of people in each of the rooms. And so basically what we thought we might do today is, at the discretion of your facilitator, we might start with a little bit of a review from your discussions yesterday and just kind of talk about some of the leading themes that came up in your discussions yesterday. But then we wanted to basically do another round of the Post-it note exercise. That actually worked really well. I have a whole backpack full of Post-it notes that are going to try to weave into a report. But this time we were going to try to focus on the themes and the issues that came up this morning and what that provoked in your mind in terms of unmet challenges and such. So we'll do some more of that input. And then in addition, at the end, if there's time, we'd kind of like to bring this back around to our overarching theme of defining a research agenda. So we were going to try to do one go around at the end of each group and put you in the position, if you were a program manager at Forest Service or EPA or NSF, and I guess a few of you actually are, but for the rest of us, just pretending you had ample resources, what topic for research or observations would you put at the top of your priority list to support? What kind of RFP would you design at this point based on, what you've been hearing today? And so we were going to try to wrap up the groups with a round of input on that question. And so we're going to try to go for a full 2 hours this time. So we'll do lunch until about 1 and let you be free for that period. And then by 1, though, we'd like you to be in the breakout group so we can get started. And we can stay there until 3. And then we'll do another quick break and then reconvene back here for final plenary session. And there we can review some of the highlights from the breakout discussions and also talk a little bit about the next steps and where do we go from here. And just so one technical note is we lost one of our rooms down here. So the group that was, I guess it was in 110 yesterday, is going upstairs to, anyway, so just match up your colors with the room number. You got it. So I think that's it. Thank you.